A 2019 Sea Ray 320 Sundancer goes up for sale at a marina in Clearwater, Florida in the spring of 2025. The owner has kept it clean for 4 years, added a new chart plotter and a bimini top, and priced it at $87,000, $4,000 below what the family paid at the peak of the pandemic buying frenzy. He called his broker, who looked at similar boats on YachtWorld, confirmed the price looked competitive, and put the listing up. What neither of them discussed was that none of those comparable listings had actually sold. 11 months later, after 3 price reductions and 2 buyers who walked following the survey, the boat clears for $63,000. The broker collected 10%. That was the cheap part. This video is about the mechanism behind that moment and why it runs on a loop in marinas from Tampa Bay to Puget Sound year after year, regardless of what the listing says. The asking price is not the selling price. The gap is not random negotiation, bad luck, or a single boat's condition issues. It is documented, consistent, and predictable. It is tracked across more than 30,000 actual marine transactions by a brokerage firm that logs every listing price, every price reduction, and every final negotiated sale. The gap is 28% for motorboats and 22% for sailboats. On a $100,000 boat, that is $28,000 the buyer refused to pay and $28,000 the seller did not know had already vanished before the first showing. This video covers how that gap is created, who profits from keeping it invisible, and the 3 calculations every boat owner needs to run before they name a price. For a long time, the story was beautiful. You did your research, found the right boat, handed over the down payment, and walked away with something that felt like more than a purchase. The slips at the marina were full of boats that had been there for 20 years, owned by people who bought them for half the price and watched them hold that value through recessions, oil shocks, and every financial storm the economy threw their way. The old salts at the fuel dock told you boats were different from cars. A fiberglass hull, properly maintained, could outlast its third owner. The culture around boat ownership carried a quiet financial assumption sewn into it, that a well-maintained vessel was an asset you could pass down or, at minimum, sell back at something close to what you paid. You stood on the dock with a coffee watching the morning light come off the water and felt the particular satisfaction of someone who had made a sound decision. The numbers, what they mean and what they hide, are for later. For now, the dream is real. 6 data points define what that dream actually costs, and everyone comes from the industry's own transaction records. The Boatshed brokerage network tracks every listing price, every price reduction, and every final negotiated sale across more than 30,000 completed transactions over 25 years, and it found that motorboats sell for 28% below their asking price on average. On a $100,000 motorboat, that is $28,000 that never changed hands. Sailboats clear for 22% below asking. On a $150,000 cruising sloop, the gap between what the owner asked and what the buyer paid is $33,000. The Boats Group, which operates YachtWorld, Boat Trader, and Boats.com, published its 2025 year-end market index in March 2026 and found that the average North American boat spent 209 days on the market in 2025, up 37 days from the year before. The National Marine Manufacturers Association reported that new U.S. powerboat retail sales fell 8 to 10% in 2025, landing at approximately 215,000 to 225,000 units, down nearly 30% from the 2020 pandemic peak of 310,000 units. Infolink Technologies, which tracks every registered recreational vessel in the United States, reported that the median age of the American boat owner reached 60 years old at the end of 2024, with more registered boat owners now in their 70s than in their 40s. And that same Boatshed depreciation dataset shows a new boat losing 15% of its value per year, compounded, so a vessel purchased for $100,000 is worth approximately $44,000 after 5 years. These 6 benchmarks, the listing gap, the days on market, the unit sales decline, the financing headwind, the aging ownership base, and the depreciation curve, form the backbone of the real boat ownership equation. These are not worst-case projections drawn from edge cases or market disasters. The industry produced every one of them from its own transaction data. Mark bought a 33-foot Beneteau Oceanis in the spring of 2021 for $78,000. He put down 25%, $19,500, and financed the remainder at 4.3% over 10 years. In the first 12 months alone, the boat consumed $21,900, $7,750 in marina fees, insurance and maintenance, $2,900 in loan interest, and $11,700 in depreciation against the purchase price. Year 1, before Mark had taken the boat anywhere worth going. By the spring of 2024, 3 years in, the Oceanis had depreciated to approximately $48,000 in actual market value. He still owed $43,000 on the loan. Selling at that point, after the broker's commission, would have required writing a check rather than receiving one. He held on. Over 4 years in total, his ownership costs for marina fees, insurance, haul-outs, bottom paint, engine service, and a set of sales he had been deferring totaled $31,000. In March 2025, Mark listed the boat at $66,000. His broker searched YachtWorld, found comparable asking prices in the mid-$60,000 range, and confirmed the number looked reasonable. What the broker did not pull was the Sold Boat database, a broker-only subscription service logging actual transaction prices, which showed Beneteau Oceanis 33 models from 2018 to 2020 clearing in the low to mid $50,000 range. After 171 days on the market and 2 buyers who walked after their surveys, Mark accepted $52,000. He still owed $38,500 on the loan. The net from the sale, after settling the remaining balance, was $13,500. Against his down payment, 4 years of monthly loan service, and $31,000 in operating costs, Mark spent approximately $83,000 over 4 years to own a boat. He recovered $13,500. The loss was not built at the moment of sale. It was built the day the listing was priced against what other boats were asking, rather than what they were selling for. The mechanism that made that outcome possible has 4 moving parts, and all 4 depend on the same condition: that the seller cannot easily find out what boats actually transact for. Unlike real estate, which requires public disclosure of sale prices through MLS filings, marine transactions have no equivalent public record. Sale prices are reported voluntarily to a subscription-only platform, sailboats.com, which costs approximately $1,200 per year and is accessible primarily to licensed brokers and marine surveyors. The average private seller benchmarks their asking price against YachtWorld listings. YachtWorld listings are not sold prices. They are opening positions, what sellers hope to receive before negotiation. Surveys and financing reality reduce that number by an average of 22 to 28%. The broker who takes the listing has access to the actual transaction database. The broker also earns a percentage of whatever the boat sells for, whether that sale takes place 3 weeks after listing or 18 months later after 3 price cuts. The arrangement is only as transparent as the incentives allow. The second mechanism is older and deeper than the current market correction. Jack Ellis of Infolink Technologies, speaking to the National Marine Manufacturers Association in early 2025, framed it without ambiguity. Many of the people who owned boats 25 years ago are the same people who own boats today, but they are 25 years older. The cohort that built recreational boating in the 1990s and in the early 2000s is now in its exit phase. The generation expected to replace those sellers, Millennials and Generation Z, is not arriving in equivalent numbers or with equivalent purchasing intent. They favor boat clubs, peer-to-peer rentals, and shared access models over the annual cost of full ownership, which runs $8,000 to $12,000. Supply grows as the ownership cohort ages out. The replacement buyer pool is not keeping pace. The third mechanism arrived in a congressional filing on January 28, 2026. Representative Nancy Mace introduced the No Tax on Boat Loan Interest Act of 2026, a bill that would allow buyers to deduct up to $10,000 annually in interest paid on American-made boat loans. The Marine Retailers Association of America endorsed it immediately. Frank Hugelmeyer, the president of the National Marine Manufacturers Association, called it legislation that will provide needed relief to American families seeking to purchase boats. A market in which the seller's own trade association is lobbying Congress for buyer subsidies because loan rates averaging 8.40% APR in the fourth quarter. 2025 have made financing prohibitive is not a seller's market. There is a fourth mechanism operating quietly beneath the other three. Group Beneteau, the world's largest sailing boat manufacturer, announced 66 new models in 3 years, a 50% increase over its previous rollout pace. Every new model release resets what the market calls current, which means a 2019 hull competes against a 2024 version at similar price points. With the newer boat carrying factory financing terms, the used boat can never match. Faster model cycling does not generate new demand. It accelerates the obsolescence of everything that came before it. Linde bought a Lagoon 42 catamaran in the summer of 2021 for $385,000, with a charter management agreement already in place. The charter broker projected $68,000 in gross annual revenue. The math, he said, would practically pay for the boat. In year 1, the gross charter income came in at $61,000. The charter management company deducted 40% at source, $24,400 gone, before Linde received a statement. The remaining $36,600 barely covered the accelerated wear that charter use generates, 2 haul-outs per year instead of 1, engine hours running at triple the rate of a private owner, and salon upholstery replacement after 18 months of rental guests. Her net contribution from charter against a $38,500 annual ownership cost was negative in year 1, year 2, and year 3. In 2024, the charter management company was acquired and renegotiated the contract terms to 45%. Linde listed the catamaran in early 2025 at $340,000. After 218 days and a survey flagging $31,000 in charter-accelerated wear items, the boat sold for $276,000. Of her $385,000 purchase price, Linde recovered 72 cents on the dollar before 4 years of carrying costs totaling $86,000. Mark started with a financed purchase and a conviction that asking prices on YachtWorld reflected real market value. Linde started with a charter income projection that promised to neutralize the ownership costs entirely. Both ended up chasing sunk costs, boxed in by a system that rewarded the charter management company, the broker, and the boatyard, and extracted money from the person holding the keys. The convergence is not a coincidence. It is the architecture of a market built on asymmetric information, preserved by a compensation structure that profits from it, and deepened by a demographic shift no one in the chain has any incentive to explain. 3 calculations will protect you from it. First, pull actual sold comps, not asking prices. Any licensed broker has access to the sold boat database by Boats Group. Request completed transactions for your specific make, model, and year range from the past 6 months. That number is your market. YachtWorld listings are starting positions, not transaction records. Second, apply the clearing adjustment before you list. The Boatshed data shows motorboats clearing at 22 to 28% below asking across 30,000 sales. A boat priced to the clearing range from day 1 sells in weeks rather than months. Third, calculate carry cost before deciding to hold. Annual ownership in the United States runs 8 to 12% of boat value per year. A 1-year hold that seeks $5,000 more but costs $10,000 in annual carrying costs is a loss with a weight attached. The arithmetic is not complicated. The transaction data exists. 30,000 completed sales, annual market indexes, registration records on every recreational vessel in the United States. None of it reaches the seller at listing because no party in the transaction chain has a structural incentive to deliver it to the person who needs it most. The ledger does not lie, the asking price always did. What did your boat actually sell for compared to what you listed it for? Drop the number in the comments. Let's build the data the industry is not going to publish.